I'd like to welcome our newest sponsor, Schecter Guitars. This holiday season, go over to schecterguitars.com and see what high-quality goodies they have waiting there for you. Premium feel and unbeatable price. See why guitarists like Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse, Robert Smith from The Cure, and Ernie C. from Body Count all love Schecter Guitars. A wide variety of styles and builds with high-end components and affordable prices for touring guitarists. Built to last. Go treat yourself and try something new you've always wanted to check out. Schecter Guitars has it all. What's up, everybody? Our partners at Izotope are having a huge holiday sale. Go to izotope.com/deals to save 30% or more on pro mixing and audio repair tools. Save over $400 on RX11 Advanced. Solve the unsolvable with their complete 44-tool audio repair and enhancement suite. That's izotope.com/deals. These savings are for a limited time only. Don't wait. Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too.
I was just really into the music that I was excited about, and I was being paid to write about it. And that was really exciting. But it was also this like strange thing of being the guy who's like at Pitchfork writing about the garage punk bands or whatever, and then like those bands are like, what the fuck, Pitchfork? I don't read that. I don't like that.
What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, December 11th. On today's show, I am very happy to welcome author, podcaster, tastemaker, collector, curator, Mr. Evan Minsker. Yeah, you hear him up there on the top talking about writing for Pitchfork. That's where, we first came into contact. And we have a really fun conversation about, sort of the state of music journalism today in our streaming hell landscape of no pay for music love. Evan is a great guy. And he writes about a lot of music that he loves and that he's passionate about over on his podcast, seesaw.fun. That's SEE-SAW, SAW.fun. He also has an incredible podcast with Nina Cochran called Punk This Week. And go check him out. You can also follow him on Instagram. It's just his name, Evan Minsker, EVANMINSKER. He writes about punk rock, and it's interesting. It's contemporary. It's nostalgic. It's retro. It's happening all now. He is fighting the good fight and supporting good musicians, and bringing it to the people. Thank you, Evan, for coming on. I appreciate you making the time and jumping on here. It was really great getting to chat. And it was also great. I got to meet Nina. I think I'm on their podcast as well. I don't remember where remember where it drops, but go find them. Punk This Week is the podcast. And they got Discords, podcasts, is a radio, all kinds of fun stuff. Oh yeah, the Seesaw Jukebox. You can discover new music if you're looking for new music, right? And you can go, oh, here we go. I was on the Seesaw Jukebox on October 9th, 2025. There we are. What do I talk about? Oh, I talk about the New York Dolls. I think it's the punk rock jukebox is fun because it's like a thing where you have to like pick, add one record to the collective punk jukebox. This sort of conceit of what records deserve to go in the punk jukebox. And I put New York Dolls first record. I feel like that's a jukebox, bar staple. You got to have that in there. So yeah, it was really fun talking with them. And yeah, Evan's great. And this is a really fun conversation about state of music journalism, the heady times that were the aughts, and writing for Pitchfork. And yeah, it's really good. I hope everybody is doing good this holiday season. It's, it can be tough. It can be tough for some people. It can be thrilling for other people. It can be a time to relax. It can be time to just zone out, just brain rot, bed rot. But give a hug to those you love and check in on your friends. Don't forget to send those random texts or those DMs to friends that you haven't heard from for a while. I think, mental health is a real issue this time of the year, if not, all year, of course, but around these times, it's nice. If you get a second, check in, send a note. I'm sure everybody is feeling it. I always get a little nostalgic, a little looking back at the end of the year, and it's nice. Just check in, say what's up. It is, you never know. You never know what little things can do for other people's lives. So it's nice to be out there. So thank you for listening. Make sure to, that's another thing you could do if you were checking in with a friend. You could also say, have you heard the Hyphenate podcast with Randy Randall? You should go listen to it and recommend the show. You can also reach out and write us here, hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at Randy S. Randall. And go check out Seesaw Fun and Punk This Week podcast, as well as the Seesaw Jukebox, and all good stuff. Here we go. Evan, welcome to Hyphenate. How you doing?
Hey, Randy, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. We were just rapping a little bit before we got the mics rolling. And it is fun being men of a certain age, listening to podcasts and then going, I should be on this podcast. I'm guilty of I'm guilty of doing this as well. And it is great. It is the great handshake of a generation.
That's exactly right. It's like, it used to be like, you'd be like, hey, we should be in a band together or something like that.
Or we should play a show.
We should be on each other's podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Instead of being like, our band should just play a show together. Like, okay, cool. I'll hit you up next time we're playing a show. Like, you want to just come on the podcast? Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that sounds great. So that sounds way easier. Drink some coffee. It's great.
Yeah. It's the middle of the day. You don't have to stay up all night. You don't have to load in gear downstairs or upstairs. So exactly. Where are you coming from? You're on the East Coast, right?
Wow, my Siri just decided to blow up on me in that very moment. No, I'm actually, right now I live in a little town called Menominee, Wisconsin, which is, it's between Eau Claire and Minneapolis. So most of the time when I'm going to see shows, it's in one of those two places. Mm-hmm. But I've lived all over. I've only lived here for the last 5 years.
Gotcha. Menominee. Sounds good.
Yes.
Sounds
it's
like
good. It's stuck in the 90s. I love it. It's just like, it's very quiet. It's like, it's really chill. It's an easy place to live.
It's the new Portland. Don't tell everybody. The 90s are alive in Menominee.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a small college town, and it's Perfect. In the 90s in the sense where it's like, everybody dresses like it's the 90s, and then there's no e-scooters or anything like that, or it feels like all of the things that major cities have, like Uber or whatever, to try to keep it with the times aren't here. So it's like, no, you just you got your bike and you got that's it. You can't really rely on app-based transportation.
Oh my gosh, that's great. No Waymos happening.
No Waymos. Yeah. No Waymo.
Oh, then what's the other thing? Yeah. Now I was just in Hollywood the other day, and we have these little robot food delivery things. Have you seen these? They're little ice chests, igloo coolers on wheels with little faces on them. And it doesn't seem good. I don't think it's going to work. I don't know. I
mean, it's a cool, I do love the Jetsons nature of it. When they fly, I think I'll be more on board.
They fly now?
They
fly now.
Yeah, if they start flying, it'll be that'll be exciting. But or maybe terrible. I don't know. Probably terrible.
I just get the sense that these things, like, who's ordering from this, and what happens when it gets to your door? Do you get a notification you got to go out and then punch in a code and open the ice chest and get out?
It's got to be.
But what are you ordering on it? I just don't think what food travels well inside of an ice chest for 40 minutes while it rolls down a sidewalk and maybe gets there or maybe doesn't. I would imagine just people could kick it over, or it's going to get hit by a car, or like the chance of it getting fucked up is so high. I just can't think of what I need that bad that I can't leave the house and instead send a robot assistant to go up to the store and get me a Snapple. I mean, what are you going to get?
And you're going to wait 45 minutes for the Snapple. You could have just like walked and got it yourself. Also, you have to be outside with the thing and getting it out. Like, you have to see, people are going to see you like interacting with it.
Your neighbors are going to know you're that guy.
They're going to see you getting out a single Snapple, and they're going to be like, wow, look at what he did today.
Yeah.
And it's like,
$10 surcharge. I mean, what is the price you could, what is the price of convenience? At what cost? Convenience.
Exactly right.
So where did you grow up, and how did you first get into music and all that stuff? Let's go biographical.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah. So I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, which was probably like the way that I got into music through records. Like, I just, got into music from collecting vinyl before it was like a thing. Mm-hmm. I think like between when it was a thing.
Gotcha.
So I was like buying records in like the very early 2000s and just like going to record stores and getting like great stuff for nothing. And
because that was kind of like records were cheap and CDs were expensive then. It was sort of the reverse of what it would later become. But at that point, like post 90s, but pre aughts or like the teens, there was kind of that zone where records were cheap and like outdated in some ways. So you could find the dollar bin had good stuff in it.
Yeah. So like for me, it was really like a couple of things. One was that like you could get really exceptional records for like $6 or something like that. That still played well and were like, now if I found the same thing, it would be like, $50 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But like between that and I got into like first wave punk rock or whatever, and like in middle school, I think.
What does that mean? Is that's British 77? That's American hardcore? Yeah, like, that's everything.
Like British 77, mm-hmm. like CBGB. I think like my mom worked at a Borders with this dude, Nathan, who like, I was like, oh, I'm getting kind of in like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack. He's like, dude, you should read this. And he handed me a copy of Please Kill Me by Legs McNeil. And then I'm like on the middle school bus reading Please Kill Me. And then
Johnny Thunder shot up with
like
toilet
getting
water.
Into all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what most of this means, but it sounds dangerous. And it's like, but it's like that I got into all those records, and then I got into like, I was like heavy into the Ramones, and like was really into that. Like my origin story in some ways is like, for that I keep like telling myself, is that same dude, that guy Nathan, threw a punk show in Huntington, West Virginia, where he booked, it was called the Punk Rock Prom, and he booked the Lost Sounds to headline.
I don't know them.
J Retard band.
Oh, okay, got it.
So it's J Retard and Alicia Trout and Rich Crook, and like, so they came up from Memphis and played the show, and I was just like, in 7th grade or something like that. And I was just like watching this band at an American Legion in Huntington, West Virginia.
And Jay couldn't have been much older than that either, right? He was probably a freshman or something in high school.
Jay was he must have been in high school or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it was like, it was a weird scene because Huntington was like, I don't think knew what to make of it, but it was like, it was like a bunch of college kids having fun, and then like me and some of my middle school friends. It was a weird vibe. My mom was there. It was great. It was really fun. But that was like my first big, like, I would like to go to as many shows as possible. So I moved to Chicago for college, and I mean, honestly, just saw as many shows as humanly possible that I could fit into my life, and then interned at Pitchfork in 2010.
Okay, hold on. Wait, I'm looking up Huntington. I want to paint the picture for those who are not familiar with it. Because I was like, wait, West Virginia's got there's some water, right? On Virginia. Well, no, West Virginia's there's no water. But Huntington, where you're at, it was closer to like Cincinnati and Kentucky.
Yes.
So you're like the northern tip of the South. And it's kind of, is that mountains?
Yeah.
Is that Appalachia? sort of mountain?
Appalachia for sure.
Okay.
Like, yeah. So like it's where Marshall University is. And like, there's like, it's called the tri-state area, which I know there are a billion of those, but it's, it's like West Virginia and Kentucky and Ohio. So it's like
Yeah.
Southern Ohio, kind of like Northeast Kentucky, and then like Southwest West Virginia, all kind of coalesce. So yeah, like there's definitely, it's definitely hilly and mountainous and all that stuff, and like the Appalachian mountain sense where they're eroded over time, so they're not like the Rockies or whatever, but it's like tons of winding roads, and that's where I learned to drive and all that. And
trip out. It looks beautiful. I mean, I'm looking at photos and things. Yeah, I'm doing a quick just kind of Google search on it. But yeah. But if you were to say you're away from a major city, this is a good definition of that. This is
yes.
not near any kind of major hub. Like I said,
yeah, like I think all the biggest shows that I saw before I went to college were like in Columbus or Cincinnati. I went to like Bonnaroo like my senior year of high school, because that's like close enough sort of to like drive down to Tennessee. But then I like one time I remember I saw the White Stripes in Pittsburgh, and that was like a huge deal. But it's like those are all like 3 to 6 hour drives, like so one way.
It's
so
huge.
It's like, okay,
that's huge.
Yeah. So
I was, you were
like,
committed. So being committed to punk in the late '90s or early aughts, this was something.
I mean, it just, and really like a lot of the first punk stuff also went hand in hand with being really into like sort of like mid aughts, indie rock, and like a lot of things like your band, like, and like a lot of bands that were like being covered glowingly in Pitchfork, and I became this like really like daily Pitchfork reader, and was like just following all the blogs, like it was like height of the blog era, the MP3 blog era.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, I didn't have shows that I could go to, so I was just like voraciously on the internet about music.
Well, there was a sense of music journalism. I'm sure you've reflected on this a lot, and on your own podcast. Well, let's give a plug for it. Seesaw.
So my newsletter is called Seesaw, which you can find at the URL is c-saw.fun, and I say it like a catchphrase out loud now. c-saw.fun.
I love it.
Said that to my mother-in-law yesterday. She's like, "How can I read this thing you wrote?" I was like, c-saw.fun.
You need a t-shirt with a QR code.
That's exactly right. Yeah, honestly. No, the podcast is called Punk This Week.
Right. Okay.
And that's me and Nina Corcoran, who currently writes at Pitchfork as well and is on staff there. And we just talk about brand new punk records.
Amazing.
Every week.
But as you reflect on that sort of time of those early aughts, I mean, it was the rise of the, it wasn't really Internet 1, but it was the birth of Internet 2.0 in some ways, where the platforming and curation was really what it was about. And it began like a more of the dialoguing rather than just the one-way communications of, here is my newsletter, here is my message, message board sort of turned into a curation and a community, right? Is that sort of how you see it? And then there was social media before social media was sort of revolving around the image of the Instagram. This was sort of social in that it was news, gossip, information, fun going on, sort of real journalism in some ways, or at least the gossip journalism applied to very mundane sort of, so by that point, uncovered corners of music.
It's definitely like, that was definitely the biggest part of it. Was it felt like you really got a sense in those days, like in the blog era, it was very much like about not only like people like covering music that they liked, but like really establishing their own personalities as writers. So like, you kind of knew like, Gorilla versus Bear is going to be into this kind of thing, or like,
Stereo
Aquarium
Gum,
Drunkard, Aquarium Drunkard, like whoever, like these
Brooklyn
people are going to be like, maybe Brooklyn Vegan is definitely like, I feel like that's the thing that people probably have like kind of memory hold a little bit, is like the Brooklyn Vegan comment section, and just like the nature of how like poisonous like the blog era was in terms of like dialogue. But there's multiple voices, I guess, which again is something that I think is missing in today's dialogue in so many ways. But there was multiple points of view in a way that were not cherry picked but siloed, I guess, versus on a platform
platform of what would fly, what wouldn't fly, and sort of what professionalism or what was considered interesting. But also I feel like in so many ways it was like Rolling Stone's spin. That was post 90s. That was all like major label stuff that they covered. Like they weren't really looking for the emerging thing unless it was a sort of industry plant or this type of like a heavily promoted new signing. So it's almost like a lot of the websites were it's like they were covering like the junior high version. They were covering the minor leagues versus the major leagues. And but again, this is pre-flattening of entertainment where you could have this depth of like, well, we're in an independent band or an independent record label. And well, what does that mean? Like, well, we operate, we have a commercial, business that operates outside of any major corporations. Like, like it almost sounds, you can't even think about that in today's sort of like, monopolized world of like, well, but how do you get on MTV? Like, well, no, we don't need MTV to survive. How are you on commercial radio? Well, we don't need commercial radio to survive. There's literally an independent, network of college radio stations that are supported by donation. There's a whole different kind of way of looking at things that, don't really exist. I don't know. I don't want to go on. I become old man shaking fist at cloud often. But.
No, but I mean, like, listen, I'm right there with you. First of all, I mean, like, I'm definitely at that point in my life too, where it's like, but it's also like thinking about how at that point in like the early, like, especially it's like, I think about, especially for me, there was this period of like, I was watching TRL and I knew I wasn't getting anything out of it, but I was watching it every day. And like, I remember having this feeling of like, well, I want to know what's going on, but I know this is not interesting to me. And then like, having, finding all these blogs and Pitchfork and like all this stuff and finally getting to be like, okay, like, yeah, people are doing really interesting things that just aren't being like anointed by, whatever, these like giant corporations that are like controlling the mass, like whatever, the mass publication of these things. And so that was, huge for me to finally be like, oh yeah, like this is way more interesting. And it's weird to think about now because it's like, I feel like so many of the things that became like, we're going to cover these like kind of alternative realities or whatever, have started to like solidify in the upper echelons of like being giant media corporations or whatever. So it's gotten muddier now where it's like, well, you are talking about some things that are pretty underground, but you're also talking about Sabrina Carpenter and, the biggest music anybody can ever imagine or buy at Whole Foods or whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms there. I remember when Sonic Youth like had a CD that was sold at Starbucks. And it was like, this is the death of media. Like, this is it. It's all downhill. Flush it down the toilet. One of my favorite early, I'm a few years older than you, but one of my favorite early internet memories, I think I've said it before, was southernrecords.com, the British, distributor. They had a tour page. Like, it had every band on their distribution on all the labels that were distributed by Southern. You could go to tours and they had all of their tours listed by dates. And it was the most useful, like, incredible thing. Cause I could see all these great bands that were on Touch and Go, that were on Discord, that were on Merge, all of these kind of, Thrill Jockey, all of this stuff, Matador, that was the 90s of indie music, and it was all listed there, and I could see when they were coming to my town. It was just an Excel spreadsheet basically on an early thing, but it was the key that unlocked, like, now I know when Blonde Redhead are going to be coming to LA, or Superchunk, or Yo La Tengo, or all of these things. I was just like, this is information I would like to have. This is what the internet is born for.
I remember, like, so when I was obsessed with Pitchfork News before I became the director of Pitchfork News, like, which is like the weirdest thing. But I remember there was this period where we kind of got this like edict from up on high that was like, well, when you do a news story about tour dates, just link out to like wherever the tour dates are. You don't have to list all the tour dates. Yes, and I just remember being like, you don't understand this at all. Like people who live, like, if you're in New York City, you're just like, yeah, they're coming to New York City. Who gives a shit? But like, you'll figure it out. But like, if you live in, say, Huntington, West Virginia, you're like, you're going to scroll and be like, are they coming to Cincinnati? Are they coming to Columbus? Like, I felt so strongly about, like, I feel like weirdly strongly about certain things like that because I was reading these things every single day and taking them in like I need, like, this is a utility. This is something that I really think matters. And so when they were like, well, we'll just like, come on, let's save some time. Let's not plug in all the tour dates. It's like, look, first of all, I've gotten way too fast at transcribing tour dates in this specific style. And secondly, like, let's just, come on, let's help some people out.
Cut to the chase. Yeah. Well, let's sell
Exactly,
sell some tickets too, which at a time when we didn't even really appreciate the percentage share of what that did for artists. Now it's 100% of the music, or 100% of any money, an artist will make. But even back then, I mean, it was still substantial. And it, I don't know. And just for the audience, really, I think that's where the stuff where you can see a community coalescing, even in a city like Los Angeles, if you were young and into weird music, you would start to meet people, and start to see. And I've played this game with so many friends that I now know are good friends. Like, were you at that Fugazi show at the Glass House in 1996? Like, yes, I was. Like, okay, me too. I was there too. Like, and it's there's probably, and again, it's not nothing like the the Joy Division show that everybody started a band after. The 20 people that saw it all started these great bands. But to a degree, you know what I mean? Like any scene, it's like if you're young and enthusiastic and like weird music, you're going to find a community. But the way that can happen is by letting people know where it was at. And that was a huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like, I will say, been the thing that I've been happiest about in my, like, so I lived in Chicago, like, just to get back into like my thing. I lived in Chicago for 4 years, and like it was like at the very end of it, I'd started to sort of find more of a community beyond just like being in college or whatever.
And what were you going to college for? What were you doing there?
I went to college for journalism because I was just like I went to. I went to Columbia College Chicago with the specific thing because on one of their pamphlets they were like, people here who went through this program got internships at these publications, and Pitchfork was on there. So I was like, shit, okay, I'll try. So like, and I luckily managed to make that happen, and like that was great. It's like, well, I can talk about it more. It was like it was great and weird because it's like, I don't know, it was in like a loft in Chicago. It was like, it wasn't like I think that when you imagine, I interned in 2 places, right? 3 places actually. AV Club, which had a real office. The Chicago Tribune, which was in a castle, like on, whatever, like the Magnificent Mile. And then I interned, the last one that I did was Pitchfork. And that was just in like a loft in Wicker Park. And I just remember like the bathrooms were just like way too close to like certain people's desks. And like, it was just like it was a weird energy to like come in as like a 21-year-old and just sort of be like, hey, a bunch of adults who I respect and have read your bylines forever. And like, but it was just strange because it's like everybody would just be at their desks with headphones on. And like, I didn't really talk to many people. And then, it was a very like sequestered kind of cloistered vibe inside this loft. But then there would be all these like freebies that were really cool. So like all the labels at the time would like send everything, and people would be like, yeah, nobody's going to take those things. You can take them. I just like run home with like a couple CDs, like really happily. But like eventually I talked to some of those people, but like really it was when after college I moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan for 10 years because that is where my now wife grew up and was going to go to grad school and all this stuff. So I was just like, cool, I'll move to Ann Arbor. I like Ann Arbor. That's great. And then that's when I found like a community of like people in punk, because it's like, I met like, people who are in like Proto Martyr and Tyvek and all these other bands that I'm very lucky to like have made friends with people in those bands, but also like just a ton of people who were just playing shows all the time. And that was like, that really regenerized like my, like beyond just being like on the internet. It was like, oh, like now I'm going to these shows. I'm like hanging out with the same group of people over and over and over again. So that was really important.
That's interesting. But so something about the Chicago sort of college into Pitchfork thing didn't necessarily coalesce into a social world. You're saying it was more. I
think for me, I was just so like focused. Like I was just like really single-mindedly, like I need to figure out how to make it happen. And so like I was going to shows and I was like networking, but like that's really, it felt like I was journalism networking more than I was like music world, like hanging out, going to shows. Also, Chicago is like kind of a bullshit place to be like an 18-year-old trying to like go to shows, because it's like the all ages scene was not substantial. like most of the shows were like, you know, you had to be 21 plus. So it's
It's
like
a very large bar,
yeah,
town. Yeah. Alcohols.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Detroit, like you could just, you could just go, you just go to the shows. Like I now live close to Minneapolis and have just been to like tons and tons of like all ages type spaces, basement shows and like, cafe type shows or whatever that are like, and I just always thought to myself like, man, this would have been a good place to be between 18 and 21, because it's like, like there's actually a vibrant punk community who are like throwing things for everyone, as opposed to just like, I'm just like praying that the St. Vincent show that comes to Metro is 18 plus or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, no, I remember, a lot of, we definitely struggled to find all ages spaces, in the major cities. In Chicago, and we played, there was a big Parachute Warehouse, I think, was like right over the Drag City, things.
That sounds amazing,
back. But again, how do you know these places, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in going from being a fan and reading Pitchfork to then working there, was there a sense of disillusionment, or was it all like what you thought it was? I mean, it's a bit like with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I imagine, to some degree, because it's hard to even like explain to somebody who wasn't there the impact that Pitchfork really had within the music industry. And at the time, like, I'm sure it was slow growing, but by the end of the aughts, by 2010, it was sort of the tastemaker. It was the new, whatever, the way people talk about Johnny Carson and stand-up comedians in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's what Pitchfork was to music. It was just this thing of like, oh, I read about you on Pitchfork. Holy shit, your life is going to be different. You gotta, there was, again, this is coming from the band side. I'm sure you hear it from the inside, but it's like, if your record got over an 8 point something, it became almost numerical. That means you are going to get signed and you will get this much money and you will sell this many tickets. Like it became like this numerical thing, which I never really believed or bought into. And just, that always felt like more like sports or like baseball stats or something. I was like, I don't really give a fuck about numbers because this is an arts thing. It's not a competition. That being said, it was taken as religious as that, or it was played almost like the roulette wheel, or or like the odds on like sports betting in Vegas. Like, what was your take on that kind of culture that arose from the Pitchfork world?
Well, it's interesting. Like I really benefited as a reader from that, right? Like obviously, like before I was in, I think that like just the scoring of it and like, sort of the as you said, the sort of like Carson, bringing somebody over to the couch, like that kind of stuff. Like I obviously I love just like benefiting from that and just being like, okay, like this is the new record that I'm going to listen to. This is really good. I am really excited about this. I do want to go see this band. Like, I think that as a fan, it was a really big deal. I think that when I interned there, it was like, it was still kind of like that. Like, I think at first it was still a little bit like, well, I have nothing to do with what's going on here other than like transcribing interviews or like fact checking reviews or whatever. So like, I would just sort of like, I was just kind of on the ride and as like a reader still in some ways. And then when I finally kind of got brought in a little bit, at first it was, I freelanced for like a year. And then Mark Richardson invited me to be a nights and weekends news writer, which I was like the first one to do that, which was really cool and nice. And then, but like for the first like, little bit, I think that I kind of had this idea where it's like, I'm in. Like I'm in, and now I can influence, like with my taste, I can be like, this is something that I feel very strongly about and I feel blah, 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 blah. And I think that what I very quickly learned was like, okay, like, so sort of two answers to this question. One is that like, that was never going to happen. Like one is like, I was never going to be like a kingmaker the way that I think people like thought of Pitchfork as being in that era. And because it's just like, it's a bit of a committee. It's a bit of a system. It's a bit of a like, well, you might think that this is great, but these three people who have like a really important say in how things work here do not agree with you, or they think that you're mostly right, but they don't think it's that good or whatever. So there's that part of it. But like the other part of it is like when you're in the machine, like after a while, as I kind of got used to it, I sort of started like ignoring it as like even a possibility of influence, and just started to be like, I am going to trick this company into letting me write about this crazy band. And like,
Okay.
that became my entire thing, was like,
You
all
saw
I wanted to do.
You saw how the machine worked, and you saw the angle, and you're like, okay, here's where I can actually have an impact by going,
Yeah,
by
where
playing
it's
the
like-
game, but also leaning in where you see a weakness, where you see the angle of it. Like, here's where all of my force is going to go into this area. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, I really took pride in being like some people on staff just immediately, like, they have it, like they become the person, like they are, you know, they're the people whose names you read on the biggest reviews and on like the biggest features and all that stuff. And I really, like, at the beginning especially, took a ton of pride into being like, if they published 5 reviews in a day, I took a lot of pride in being like review number 5 of 5, where it was like, I wasn't like getting like the best new music A slot or like whatever, like the big new rappers like released a new album and it's not good, but it's like the first one on the page. I was always like, oh, like this band from Detroit who I think is unbelievable, I'm going to give them, you know, whatever they let me give them, which is probably like a 7.7. And then I would be like, yeah, and it would be in the 5th spot, and like that would be what I would do. And then I'd be like, hey, I reviewed this band, and then the band would be like, LOL, what? and that's normally how it would work.
Like,
but
they
like,
never, meaning they were humor that they were even, anyone even noticed them. Like, you were finding
Exactly,
the
like,
underdogs, not even the like
yeah,
the up and coming underdogs. The like, whoa, how did this happen? Kind of bands.
Yeah, and it was also, it's funny because it's like that period was very much like marked for me by whenever I would write about a band that maybe didn't have like a huge system behind them, or like, you know, a bigger indie label or a bigger PR company or anything like that. I would write about them, and then they would just sort of be like, hey, like they would share it and they'd be like, hey, it's weird, but Pitchfork wrote about me. And it wouldn't be like I wrote about them, it would be Pitchfork wrote about them, which I think is like, you know, for me, it was sort of like, yeah, I mean, just to be clear, like Pitchfork doesn't give a shit. Like Pitchfork barely let me write this. So like,
that's funny.
Yeah, because that's not how I paid the bills. I
Sure.
paid the bills by running news. Like that was it.
Okay.
Like,
you got to credit the writer, don't credit the publication. But that was the sort of but Pitchfork was the head, you know, that was the masthead.
Yes.
That was the headline that was you know, sometimes that was the Pitchfork part was almost bigger than the music, which would then go on to have you know, like the Pitchfork fests and the thing, you know what I mean? There's the word Pitchfork itself then became the brand more so than the bands they covered sometimes, you know, and
Yeah, and I think that there was like a way where, you know, I really get it. Like I get why just being like, hey, this was covered in Pitchfork is more interesting than like this person at Pitchfork wrote about my thing. And I think I don't know, maybe I had some like denial about what that meant, but I really just, to me, I was just really into the music that I was excited about, and I was being paid to write about it. And that was really exciting. But it was also this like strange thing of being the guy who's like at Pitchfork writing about the garage punk bands or whatever, and then like those bands are like, what the fuck, Pitchfork, I don't read that, I don't like that, like or whatever. So it's like, so it was an interesting position to be
you were almost out of step on both sides, right? Like I had the black sheep on both sides of that sort of thing. Yeah, where you're like, okay, that's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like,
you mentioned Jay. I mean, what did you get to be friends with Jay or friendly? Like, you know,
not at
nothing.
all.
Okay, because it sounds like
I did like an email interview with Jay, was like the one piece of like direct contact that I ever had with him, like right before he died, like the year before he died. But like I was still like, by the time he died, like the second day of my internship at Pitchfork. So like I was like, got it. So really, like I was like a huge admirer of his music and like, you know, proselytized about it and like followed it and everything else. But I really didn't know the guy. Like, I think, you know, as a matter of fact, I remember the last opportunity that I got where I could have seen him. He was opening for the Pixies on the Doolittle tour, but I didn't see Jay open on that tour. I saw you open on that tour. I'm pretty sure.
But this was Chicago
2009.
Yeah, there was the big
Aragon, maybe the Vic, one of those.
Yeah, we were there. Yeah, that was it was a wild run. No, I think Jay did the New York shows and like some more of the East Coast ones. God damn. Yeah, what a time. I mean, that was wild. to get to open up for him. But I mean, I got to know Jay just on the road, you know, and and passing and playing shows. And we did a bunch of shows in Australia and New Zealand together. And probably right around that time, it would have been like that Christmas, which was their summer just before he passed. And it was wild. It was really, you know, it was just one of those moments. I feel like for me, you know, it's, you know, like in the way, like the rock star biographies of it, you know, you see that like Jimi Hendrix was here and then wait, he died, or, you know, or something. It's like of someone of your, like of your age and of your generation. And you're just like, that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, this isn't right. And like, and it also, it's the hard slap of the reality of just drugs and alcohol and just excesses and abuse of that kind of stuff. It was just like, okay, there is a floor to this, or there's a ceiling to how crazy you can be for how long and what you can get away with and what you can't. And it was just so heartbreaking and so tragic and just, yeah. I mean, I on a personal level, like I was just newly sober and trying earnestly and sweating it out and white knuckling it in the best that I could. And, you know, and that sort of questioning of like, this is stupid. This is dumb. I don't have a problem. I don't know. It probably doesn't mean anything, whatever. And all the dumb stuff you say in early sobriety. And I heard and then I heard about his passing, and it was really just like, oh, okay. If there is a question, if I'm on the right path or not, you know, for my personal, you know, very selfish personal takeaway was, I think I should maybe take this a little bit more seriously, because the road not taken is maybe a lot harder and a lot more sad and, you know, finite than the one I'm trying to take. And it was terrible. It was terrible. It really just shook me, but I knew I was doing the right thing for myself at the right time.
I think, I mean, like, it's interesting because it's like, as I've gotten older, I've like met more people who were either like close to him or like in his orbit or like played shows with him or whatever, and like knew him like close to the end. And it's like, it does sound like things had hit a critical point. They obviously hit a critical point. Like, it was obviously awful. But I don't know, for me, like, that was really shocking. I was like, obviously as a fan, like, it's shocking to be like, oh, this person who has been making music that I've loved for this long, and like, as like we're kind of like on the same path together or whatever, in some ways, like they're gone all of a sudden. But with Jay, it was like really specific, I think, because he put out so much goddamn music. Like, it was just like there was a new thing all the time, and then there just wasn't. Like, there's just a hard line where there's nothing anymore. And it's like, that is still something that I think about, where it's like, oh man, like, at the rate that he was going, where would we be now? And it's like, I don't know. Like, that, I don't think that we were ever going to find out. Like, that was that he was on the path that he was on, and it was just going to end. But it's heartbreaking.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I remember on those New Zealand shows, you know, after the Australia run, and we were talking with them, and at that point, I was drinking pretty hard, and he was trying his best. He's like, nope. He was trying. He was trying to really not be going down that way. And I remember thinking, like, really? But you're the one. But I think he was, you know, and he was having a hard time with it. And then it would, you know, and then time would continue through, you know, but just to see that kind of thing and just see where he, you know, he knew he needed to change. It was so hard. And, but yeah, in terms of the body music, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. I just think, you know, in terms of the relevancy of that era of time and that space, I mean, his legacy is, you know, huge. I don't know if it's talked about in the same kind of ways, or where, I don't know how you see it in covering new generations of music. Is he cited as an influence, or is he seen as this sort of, I mean, because again, in my mind, this is like, you know, he's up there with, you know, it's a Kurt Cobain thing. It's a, you know, gone too soon, you know, kind of thing. And he just shouldn't have the amount of talent and songs and everything. It was just like, wow.
I think it's interesting. Like, there's like obviously sort of the mass. I think that like he is not known. Like, if I think about like, who do my like parents know? It's like, they know Jay because of me, but like they wouldn't know of Jay otherwise or whatever. Like, but like when I think about like people, like I kind of feel like I exist in a community of other, you know, miscreant punk rocker types or whatever, and they love Jay. Like, Jay is like obviously still has a huge impact on, you know, but I think that's like a little bit punk world too, where it's like, I think punk punks don't really forget. Like punks are still really into like the Scientists and like,
Mhm.
you know, the Suicide Commandos and like just like bands that are like from like decades ago that they're like, holy shit, have you heard this? Like one of the things I have, my website Seesaw has a Discord, and like we'll just talk about like old punk music all the time. So I feel like there is a level where it's like they can recognize greatness in like even so-called like dead periods for a genre. They can be like, oh, in like 1997 this was an incredible record, and it's like, yeah, 1997 was like a weird year for music, but like that these are some great 7 inches that you found or whatever. But yeah, like Jay is still definitely beloved in that corner, like without question.
Wow. And then you go from intern to writing about news. And then what was it, I guess, before we move off of Pitchfork, I'm just so curious, like,
Yeah.
what was it? How would you know if it was news or not? Like, what was that your call at some point to say this is newsworthy, this isn't? Are you just evaluating press releases, or are there people man on the streeting it out there? Like, oh, something, someone just had a meltdown at the show and there was pictures posted and you know what I mean? Like, okay, is that newsworthy enough? Like what?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I feel like everybody had their own barometer. And like, that was like the weirdest thing, was that when you do news every day, it just becomes like a muscle that you start to like see after a while. Like originally for me, when I started, I was like, this is a Pitchfork artist. I know that it's a Pitchfork band. I know that like we will cover this album. We have to cover this.
You could
like,
smell
tour
it.
announcement.
Like
that, yeah. Like initially I was just like, this band is like the biggest deal. And then sometimes, unfortunately, like an artist will just, start to, put out stuff that the website in general just seemed to like lose some steam on or whatever. It just felt like the whole, like people who were like reviewing this stuff would be like, yeah, I don't know, like they haven't been good in the last like 4 albums, so we're not going to write a news story about it anymore or whatever. So it's like every now and then something like that would happen, or like, but then it was the tricky thing was more like who is brand new and is like a Pitchfork person or whatever, like who is like a new rapper, especially, was like the craziest one, where it's like when I remember like there were moments where it's like, okay, Cardi B is now a big deal and we have to write about Cardi B, and it was like, okay, so like but that was like, it's always to me like this combination of taking everyone's temperature, of just being like, and if I didn't know enough, I would just be like, hey, you write about this shit and you're smart and you care, is this news? And then normally somebody would be like yes or no, and then I'd just sort of follow their lead and figure it out. But for me, really, that was like that was a fluid situation. Like it was always like whatever was news was changed like month to month, and then we would have disagreements about it, because like I think, like I kind of said earlier, like being the person who was like, I remember writing an album announcement story for Tyvek, because I was like, Tyvek, the Detroit band, is one of my favorite bands of all time. It did bullshit numbers. Like it's like in terms of like traffic, like 500 people clicked on it or whatever.
Oh, I see.
It's
I
like,
see. Right. That's your sort of your key performance index of how many clicks a story gets. Right. That's how
exactly.
And if a writer gets more clicks, and are they seen as being a more relevant writer, or is it a more valuable writer, or how is that even, what is the implication of that, of like you wrote a story that a lot of people clicked on? How was that?
Well, okay. I'll say a couple things about that. One is that became like a bigger deal, like halfway into me being there, like, especially like after Conde bought the company, we started to get hit with like, hey, we have these new KPIs. Do you know what that word means?
Oh yeah.
So like we had to, I don't know.
Key performance indicators, like key performance.
Yes, there we go. I just always heard the words KPIs, and I was like, okay, that's a number I have to hit, I guess. But like sometimes it would be like time spent on a piece. Sometimes it would be like how many people clicked on the piece or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And so like
we
were really encouraged.
This is the attention economy. This is, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we were encouraged to really play into that, and so like it really just became like every time a musician / celebrity did something that, like, as long as it wasn't like grossly celebrity gossipy or whatever, like if it had something to do with music world, then we were in. Like if they were, especially like if people were feuding, like, oh, Nicki Minaj and Cardi B are in a fight with each other, and now we've got
tabloid
like
journalism. Yeah,
here's what she said 2 days later. Well, here's what she said dead. So like those
Yeah.
stories would always do like
Well,
insane numbers.
Well, it becomes
whatever.
clickbait too at some point too. You know what I mean? And all the bad things
Yes.
that was just going down the drain of online writing. Yeah.
Yeah. So like here was my kind of takeaway was that every now and then I would write a piece that would do huge numbers. And that's always when I would get in trouble, actually, is that like I would do a story that did like really, really well. And then somebody would be like
unpunished. Yeah.
Yeah. They would be like, hey, why didn't we do this headline instead? It could have been even bigger. Or like, hey, they'd be like, hey, why did you do this? This made us look bad. Or like whatever. Like, hey, I saw we got these 5 emails, because it's like the ones that get the most read, you get the most anger about it on social media and emails. So then like
it's a numbers game. Yeah, if you have hundreds of thousands of people looking at something, the chances of pissing someone off are higher.
So
like, what do you want? Do you want the views, or do you want the safety of it all? Yeah. Wow.
Right. And, to me, it's like, I was really, really, Randy, I was very good at the game. I knew how to milk the views. I knew how to like rope people in. I knew how to write a good headline. I knew how to write a tweet.
Yeah.
I knew how to write a Facebook post. I knew how to get people in and like riled up if I needed to or whatever. Like I could, like, I knew I could
turn it up,
it.
turn it down, yeah.
So like, I don't know. And also I was just fast. Like I was just like really, I got really good because I did it for 12 years. I got really good at being like fast and accurate and like with no misspellings or factual errors or whatever. So like when Daft Punk announced their breakup, that was like the biggest traffic day in the history of the website, and that was my fault because I was eating a bagel and like literally like my phone blooped with a notification from Daft Punk's YouTube. I scrolled to the end. I was like, Daft Punk broke up, you have to do the story right now. I wasn't at work that day. That was my fault. I was that fast because they had us like basically like hair trigger reacting to like Kanye, Daft Punk, Taylor Swift, whoever, like the biggest names.
Gotcha.
And that's also why I've benefited greatly from therapy. I've had a lot of like hair trigger anxiety stuff.
It's post-traumatic stress. You have the PTSD of like, someone's getting married. Someone just said something bad. Oh God. Kanye's having a meltdown. Look, Kanye wore something weird. Oh my God.
I will say maybe like, this isn't like the biggest story, but it was a funny example of this is I remember very specifically, like my wife had like a couple of friends over and I came downstairs and was just like, whatever, talking or whatever. And I got a notification on my phone. And I was like, hey, sorry guys. At the time I had my computer, my little office was in my basement. So I was like, sorry guys, I got to go to the basement. Nas just dropped a new track. And everybody laughed really fucking hard because it was like, to me, I was like, hey, gotta go. Yeah. Nas has released a new song. Like that's like an actual legitimate, like walk out of the room emergency.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're a fireman and you just gotta, the siren just went off. You got to go put out the fire. Like this is, this is news. I got to go. This is my job. I get paid for this. It's not a joke.
But that's to my point. Like, I think that people who did the best traffic wise, I don't think were ever like, they weren't like, this is the guy. Like they were never like that. I mean, really, I feel like, just to be clear, like, I think the biggest news story that they did in the year 2024 in terms of traffic was the Coachella lineup announcement, which I wrote. And then the next day I got laid off. So it's like, they did not give a shit about traffic. Like at the end of the day, if they cared as much about traffic as they told us as they cared about traffic, then I would have had like any job security because I really, really delivered on traffic. But I think that it's just, they didn't know how to monetize it.
What's your perspective? I mean, it sounds like you were in there for that Condé Nast transition and sort of up until whatever it is now. It's an entertainment part of GQ. Is that right? It like got absorbed instead of it's being its own headline. It's like part of some other magazines, like music.
It's like it's still its own thing, but it's run by Will Welch, who also runs GQ. Right. So it's like I'm not there anymore.
Sure.
Look, I have friends who still work there and I still feel like, mad respect for them for like getting the bag and doing the thing, like congratulations. I think that's great. But in terms of like, I don't know, really, I think the whole time I was there was a very clear like dissonance between like the people at Pitchfork and the people who like paid all of us. So like the people who who paid all of our, like, you know, there was that great piece that came out after they announced that Pitchfork Music Festival was just no more, and it kind of revealed some of the behind the scenes conversations with Condé Nast people who just didn't get it. Like, they were like, why are we doing this music festival if it's not like Oasis headlining, like, or whatever? Like, they just didn't understand that it was like, no, this is like built on our curation and that matters and blah blah blah, and that's why people like it. Like, they didn't get it, they just didn't understand what they had. So for me, like, I thankfully was always remote, so I didn't have to like go into the office and like interface with these people most of the time. Like, every great once in a while I would have to like be pulled into some corporate meeting, and it was always painful. But actually, you know, I think that everybody who I ever worked with at Pitchfork, I think, had like they were kind of like, maybe even if we all had like different opinions about like what mattered or like what was good or whatever, like, I think we were all like pushing in the same direction of like, we want this thing to be like our own thing. We want this thing to be like, we all want this to be Pitchfork. We don't want it to be you know, in Wayne's World, like Noah's Arcade presents Wayne's World. Like, we didn't want it to be Noah's Arcade presents Pitchfork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. And I mean, I have to imagine, just for Ryan, you know, that it was absurd that anybody would buy a website, you know what I mean? From where he started to where it got to then being offered whatever amount, I don't know the details of it, but whatever he was offered, offering $10, you know what I mean, to buy a website. It's just must have been just absurd, let alone, I mean, but it was also just a sign of the times. I don't think it would happen now. I don't think, for whatever, you know, there's so many different, you know, economics of online journalism and ads and all this other stuff, but really it was it was the right place and the right time, and he took the offer, and because what else was there to do? I mean, but do you see it? I mean, how do you reflect on that in terms of just the selling of it and what it was? I mean,
I don't begrudge him at all for selling it. I mean, I think, I don't know the specifics, but my understanding is always like, selling it was a very good idea in terms of like where they were at, like in terms of it being independent. Like, I don't need to like get into like whatever gossip I heard about it, but it's like, my understanding is that that wasn't a bad call in terms of like where they were at and the moment that they did it. I think that, you know, once he took his hand like fully off that wheel, it was sort of just going to go wherever it was going to go. And then it was like, I was very lucky to be there. I always had this line of like, if they let me retire doing this, I would have retired doing it. And they were never going to let me retire doing, like, my dad was a journalist who got laid off when I was in like, you know, 6th grade or something like that. So like, I think I went into journalism knowing like, well, I'm going to get laid off. Like, every journalist,
these are how these careers end. They don't go, there's not a gold watch. And
it's like, I remember the first year of journalism school, there was just like, I would just go into these classes, like intro to journalism classes. They'd be like, yeah, I got laid off from my newspaper job, and one day you're going to get laid off too, kid. And then like everybody, like, they'd come back the next week and like half the class is still there. It's just like, everybody else like went into like film school or something.
Wow. That's wild. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're coming towards the hour mark. Let's talk about what you're doing now. Let's talk about, Seesaw. Let's talk about punk podcasting and how are you finding the podcast space? How are you liking this?
Well, honestly, like, the podcast space is a glorified reason to just talk to Nina every week, right? Like, it's like, it's not like I haven't like sold an ad against it. I haven't done anything that makes it like, you know, a big lucrative moneymaker or anything like that. But it's also because like, I talk about new underground punk rock. So it's like, I'm kind of, the whole thing with Seesaw is that I think I realized, so I used to have a punk column at Pitchfork for a bit, called Shake Appeal. And I ended up, you know, just like, they didn't pay me to do that. So I just kind of dropped it after a year. I was just like, I'm not going to lose sleep over this anymore. Like, literally, I was just like staying up all night to like write it. And then I think I got laid off, and I was like, I should just do that again. Like, that was like, my biggest regret at Pitchfork was that I went in because I wanted to write about music, and then I left having written a lot of like really heavy and intense news articles, and not like about like, you know, like whatever, like court battles or whatever. Like, it was just like not why I got into it, and I, kind of remembered like, well, I just kind of want to write about the music that I love. Like, I want to write about the music that like got me into this in the first place. And, so the thing about punk music is that it's a fire hose. It's like it just never, ever, ever stops. Like, kids are making new punk music all the time. Old dudes and ladies who have been doing it forever are still making records. Like, and there's a lot of like really exciting weird shit happening in the corners of like Bandcamp that I think feel like people don't necessarily like see or unearth unless they're like super plugged in to this weird community of sickos that I'm plugged into. So like, to me, like, I wanted to do the amount of punk writing that I actually, have always wanted to do. So that's why I started a newsletter, even though I think I was like weirdly like it was sort of strange to be like, oh, it's odd to be sort of sequestered out here and just sort of doing it super independently. But I've seen other, layoffs have hit all of corporate media. Like, it's not just specific to Pitchfork or Vice or wherever. It's like everywhere has been hit by layoffs. And I've seen all of these like real news journalists be like, well, I've got into journalism to be a journalist, not to be an entrepreneur who also has to like do a podcast and do, all of my own like self-promotion and social media and all this other stuff. And I wonder if, as a music writer who really loves punk music, like, I think music writers might be better like prepared to be hyphenates, to better prepared to be like, hey, let's figure out how to like, I can't just write anymore. I've got to be my own hype man. I've got to be my own, like, I've got to like sell this thing that I do. And so, that's what I found starting Seesaw, is that like, yes, I'm a writer, but I'm also, an assignment editor, a podcaster. I do a radio show on terrestrial radio now every week. I do like,
what's that on?
It's called Seesaw Radio. It's on 6 radio stations. So you can hear it on Co-op in Austin, KOOP, but it's also here in Eau Claire. It's on Converge Radio. Yeah, it's you can go to.
How fun!
Yeah,
it's great. Where do you go? Sorry, I stepped on your plug. Where can people go to find
C-saw.fun? You can find it all.
Okay, everything's there.
It's all there.
It's there. Okay, that's
everything's
one-stop shop for all things.
It's a one-stop shop. Yeah. You can find the podcast. You can find the radio show. You can find all the links to all the things. But it's but yeah, like, that's I do feel like there is a level of like, I got laid off from my full-time job, and now I make about like a fifth of that doing like 30 more jobs than I was doing before. And I love it. It's like way more fun than my actual job was. Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. Yeah, no, we'd always joke on tour. I was like, even, no matter what we got paid for the shows, if we actually, broke it down by the hour, for the 8-hour drive and the, all the time spent, everything you do, there's no way we were even touching minimum wage for the amount of time you put into a thing. But again, it was never the point. We were kids, and and there was we got so good at just living on the cheap and being very comfortable and very happy spending no money or as little money as possible. And so anything that came in was just profit. If you didn't spend much, you didn't need to make much in order to be successful. And that was something that did us well in our young years. And now, as the collapsing of late stage capitalism is gracing our generation, it's the same kind of idea. Like, top ramen is not just a college meal. You can eat that as adults too.
Like, I love that that's where we find ourselves. I'm 37 and we're just reaching a hand across the podcast world to say, hey, we're still hustling out here. That's all we can do.
That's it. I mean, that's really so much of what the Hyphenate idea was behind this thing too, is just like, everybody's doing more than one thing. I don't know anybody that's just doing one thing. And it was an easy it was my sort of back pocketed way of like, I just want to talk to everybody. And what's a way I could talk to everybody? It was everybody who's creative or who's interesting or that I'd want to talk to is going to have more than one thing going on. And I've sort of abandoned any sort of heavy-handed theme hitting. I don't ever have to even ring the bell, because at some point it just comes up and it's like, all right, I've talked to some people and like, if you really dug in and did a more, thorough, like financial, like how did this get made, or how I built this kind of like NPR, like business side of things, you could really have something interesting to talk about. The generationals, career advisory, trajectory and things. I'm just like, fuck, man, I don't know if I have it in me.
That sounds.
I want
that description just sounded hard. Like I don't like this. This was fun. Let's do this.
Yeah. That's, and again, for the amount I'm getting paid to make even 10 cents more, 10 cents less on either side, it just doesn't fucking matter to me. If I can't, I really have to just do it without thinking about it that hard. Otherwise it's just, there's not enough to make into it or enough to lose in it to really compromise in any way at this point of the game. I mean, if I was younger, maybe I would be teachable, but I'm just too old at this point to give a fuck about about doing something successful if I'm not enjoying every second of it. And once it starts to feel like work, it really just like, you're gonna have to pay me for that. I'm gonna,
Yeah, it's like there's a version of Seesaw. I remember somebody asked me at one point, like, hey, how would you scale up Seesaw to make it more profitable? And I was like, I would just probably do what I did before. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to talk about like ultra popular music just because it's popular. Like, I want to talk about like things that are really good and exciting. And then of course it's like, yeah, I mean, that's not a moneymaker. It just fills the cup. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I think it's interesting too. I mean, we'll wrap up here in a second, but it was just interesting to hear from your side of things too, from the music journalist side, that like the better off seemingly you would do, the more pressure and the more you disappointed. And I think I related to that so much from the music side, I think, because this was constantly a conversation we had as a band or with record labels or with promoters or everything. It's like you play the bigger venue and damn if you didn't know there was a storm that came through, or it was a Tuesday, or there's a carnival happening across town, and gosh, we just really we thought we were going to sell out. And it's like there was the like almost an abusive level of optimism that every show would be sold out everywhere. And you're like, guys, we really can't. We can't keep scaling up the shows. Like the every tour can't get bigger than the last one. We're not a shark that's just has to grow and eat. We are not designed that way. Have you heard us? Have you looked at us? Do you understand what we're like? Is there anything fundamental about who we are as people, where we came from, and like everything we talk about in our career and our life that really we're going to fit into this like more kind of thing? But it was a constant, but it was a disappointment. So I mean, our biggest successes were some of the hardest, most heartbreaking moments too as a band. You know what I mean? We were just like, wow, I really wish this could have gone better. Sorry we disappointed everybody. Sorry we didn't sell more records. So, but at the same time, when no one's selling records, or when, you know what I mean, the entire music industry is collapsing around us, and we weren't the ones that could, as well as we ever did, didn't do better.
And like, and honestly, like that is really heartening to hear from your end too, because it's like, I think for me, having a moment of, okay, I was at the top, right? Like I couldn't go up from there, because honestly, like I didn't see another up to get to. I've never been an inherent like ladder climber anyway. I kind of fell into like a higher position of Pitchfork just by being around, I guess. Yeah. But like, I don't know, like at the end of that, it was sort of like, okay, I did that. That was like interesting. It was definitely like good money wise or whatever. Like, I mean, I never thought I would make money as like a journalist for a music journalist. Like that just doesn't make any sense. But we had a union, so like we did good for a minute, and then they union busted, and then it was all over. But like but otherwise it's like I at the end of it just being like, okay, like by the time I'd scaled all the way up, I'd kind of like lost the joy in it a little bit. And so finding that again and doing it on like, sort of like boots on the ground, like let's just go to a bunch of shows and like talk to a bunch of bands and write about like people who deserve it, people who like deserve a little more attention and maybe aren't getting like recognized by, whatever, Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, name it. Yeah. So that's, it's nice to hear that like the big time isn't always what it's cracked up to be, but like on your end too.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a major takeaway. I had the conversation with my wife after we went and saw the Pavement documentary that just kind of came out.
Oh yeah.
And it was that thing, you kind of look at them and it was just, dramatized for the screen, for comedic laughs, but there was a kernel of truth in there that, they were just nothing but a letdown to everyone around them. You know what I mean? And here's the band, even at this point in their golden years, selling out whatever their biggest crowds are, you know what I mean? Just like, Yeah, but it's not Oasis. Someone else goes to do it more,
Yeah,
but
no, hey,
but finding
who among us?
Yeah, right. But finding finding satisfaction where you're at, and finding your own sort of bliss in it all is really all you're ever going to get out of it.
For sure.
End of it all.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Evan, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was great catching up and great talking.
Thank you so much, Randy. This was a genuine pleasure, genuine honor to get to chat with you.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. I appreciate it, man. Thanks. and everybody go to c-saw.com.
.fun.
.fun?
Yes.
Do you own that one, dude? .gov?
No, I only had .fun money when I got laid off.
Ah, okay. There it is.
Yeah, that's right. The playground industry really locked up all the URLs.
Dope. Yes, there he is, Evan. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on the Seesaw Jukebox. And everybody go listen to Punk This Week, the podcast that Evan does with Nina Cochran, also a writer at Pitchfork. And go to Seesaw.fun. Seesaw.fun. Oh my gosh. C-saw.fun. That is the website you should go to and discover new music and check out new recommendations and support independent media, support music journalism. What a wild idea. So much good music being made out there in the world. If you want to send me your bands, I would love to hear what you're up to. You can send it to hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com or send me a note on the Instagram at Randy S. Randall. And I want to hear what's going on. I want to discover new music. I want to find new good punk music for this holiday season. Go out, buy records. Physical media still matters, and it goes a long way to support bands. If you're thinking of a band that you love, a band in particular, go to their the Bandcamp. Buy a T-shirt. That usually goes directly to the bands, and it makes a difference. Buy T-shirts, buy sweatshirts, buy records directly from the bands wherever possible. Go to shows, buy the merch. Pull a couple 20s out before you go. Cash helps such a huge amount seeing bands on tour, and gets them down the road. Usually goes in the pockets of Big Oil at some point, just paying for gas. Jumping around from town to town playing music, you got to pay for the gas to get there. So anything you can do to support independent music, independent venues, independent artists, it goes a long way. So get out there. Make your presence felt in your community and be part of the conversation. So, all right, have fun. Have a good holiday weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye.
I got into music through records. Like I just, got into music from collecting vinyl before it was like a thing. I think like between when it was a thing.